Ghouls stalk Tokyo's streets, feasting on humans while the police label them monsters. The city whispers that something lurks beneath neon lights, a hunger that never sleeps. A lone reporter flashes a picture of a shadowed figure, eyes glinting red, and the public trembles. Fear fuels the CCG's hunt, but the real danger hides in plain sight, wearing smiles and school uniforms. The night deepens, and the unseen predator inches closer to the unsuspecting. And that's not even the worst part. The police broadcast a warning. Humans are now prey. Citizens clutch their bags tighter, eyes scanning every passerby. A corpse discovered in the Takata building triggers a frantic autopsy, confirming Ghoul involvement. Kaniki's heart pounds as the midnight train screeches into the deserted tunnel. Rise's blood-soaked smile flashes in his mind, then fades into the grimy walls of Antiku. Tuka slashes through a prowling ghoulish mob, her Kagun slicing night itself, while Kaniki unleashes his new Kagun, scattering enemies like paper. The CCG's sirens wail beyond the station, heralding a war that will tear Tokyo apart.
Are you living with your mother now?
Kaniki watches the eyes of the cafe regular who has been lingering at the counter, craving a glimpse of normalcy. He wants to understand why the watcher keeps mentioning his own gaze, as if searching for something familiar in his stare. The watcher's cryptic comments about flavor and eyes twist the conversation into a bizarre dance, making any direct answer impossible. Kaniki lifts his chin, forces a polite smile, and asks for clarification, but the watcher only leans closer, whispering incomprehensible praise. The encounter ends with Kaniki's heart racing, unsure whether he's being admired or mocked.
The scene where the devilish, murderous mother.
Kaniki feels the night's pulse tighten around his throat.
Kaniki battles a hulking, shadowy ghoul in a rain-slick alley, his Kagun flaring as he shatters the creature's skull and watches crimson spray paint the night. He feels his fragile humanity crack, yet a fleeting surge of protective resolve ignites, reminding him that every life he saves stitches together the torn pieces of his own soul. The guttural roar of another unseen predator reverberates from the darkness, and a cold, familiar hand slips into his grip, promising a betrayal that could plunge the city into deeper chaos. The psychological warfare in this arc is insane. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari. Kaniki staggers out of the clinic, Rise's crimson heart pulsing beneath his skin. The moon ignites his new hunger, and blood-soaked streets roar as his trembling hands claw at a passerby. He darts into the dim alley where Antiku's neon sign flickers, only to find Tuka waiting, her eyes fierce, her blade glinting. Together they plunge into the night, ready to tear the CCG's veil apart. Kaniki's world shatters as Rise's razor-sharp teeth tear through his ribs, spilling her organs into his bloodstream. The ghoul's blood ignites a monstrous hunger, forcing him to stalk Tokyo's neon alleys for human flesh. Kaniki's pulse hammered as Rise's razor-sharp teeth sank into his throat, spilling his blood into the organ tray. The world cracked, human cravings tangled with a ravenous ghoul's hunger. He staggered out of the clinic, eyes burning white, and fled into Tokyo's neon night, where whispers of Antiku promised refuge while shadows of Aojirai stalked his every step. If you want more daily recaps, hit that subscribe button now. The next bite could seal his fate. Night drapes over Shibuya as Kaniki's pulse spikes, the transplanted Rise organ screaming hunger. He lunges at a trembling passerby, claws tearing flesh, while Tuka's eyes flare from the shadows, urging restraint. You feel the terror of hearing your own name ripped apart by a ghoul's scream. Kaniki watches a terrified student chew on something that looks like pig intestines, the sight twisting his stomach. The student's eyes widen, then collapse as the ghoul's Kagun lashes out, tearing flesh. Kaniki's heart hammers, his hands curl into fists, ready to intervene. But a sudden scream pierces the chaos. Kaniki, echoing from somewhere deep inside the crowd. The scream freezes his blood, forcing him to choose between saving a stranger or protecting his fragile new self. He lunges forward, grabbing the struggling student, pulling him away just as the ghoul's claws snap shut. The ghoul's roar fades, but a darker presence watches. A hushed voice asks, "Hungry?"
echoing through the empty hallway, a reminder of the gnawing void inside every ghoul. The lone researcher mutters, "I'm hungry," his tone hollow, as he flips through Kafka's tale of a man-turned-insect, drawing a twisted parallel to his own metamorphosis. He wants to understand the perverse allure of decay, hoping the grotesque story will unlock a clue to the ghoul's cravings. The obstacle. His mind clings to rotten cheese and spoiled meat, rejecting fresh sustenance, a symptom of his own corruption. He forces himself to taste the bitterness, sealing his fate as he embraces the darkness within. But the real problem is already in motion.
Kaneki lunges as a masked ghoul bursts into the lab, snatching the experimental organ and shattering the containment field, sending a cascade of crimson fluid flooding the sterile hallway. He watches the life-saving organ slip away, realizing his desperate bid to protect the human donor costs his chance at humanity, and his hunger claws deeper, threatening to consume his remaining conscience. The lab alarms wail as the masked intruder vanishes, leaving Kaneki alone with leaking toxin and a looming threat. Who will claim the organ now, and what price the ghoul world demands?
There was a hidden detail in this chapter you probably missed. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari, and I'll reveal it next time.
The ghoul rips his throat open, and the city's nightmare begins. A trembling freshman stumbles into a dim alley, his heart pounding as he hears a low growl behind him. He wants to escape the darkness, but a shadowy figure steps forward, eyes glinting with hunger. He freezes, breath shallow, hoping the night will hide him. The ghoul lunges, teeth snapping inches from his skin, and a sudden flash of white flesh covers his face. Rise's blood-scented hand drags him into the abyss. He barely registers the cold steel of a kitchen knife before everything goes black.
Your screen feeds us.
The nightmare has only just taken its first bite. He has no idea what's waiting. The answer is already too late if you want more daily recaps. Hit that subscribe button now. Kaneki clutches his throat, the foreign organ inside screaming for blood. He wants the pain to stop, to understand why his body betrays him. The transplanted flesh throbs, a living reminder of Rise's hunger, and his human mind refuses to accept the ghoul's cravings. He forces his hand to his chest, feeling the ragged heartbeat echoing the predator inside. The surge of nausea forces him to the floor, his vision blurring as the ghoul's instinct claws upward.
Kaneki's eyes snap open as Rise's blood-soaked smile fades into darkness. His new half-ghoul heart pounds, craving flesh. He staggers into Antiku's dim backroom, where Tuka's icy stare meets his trembling hands. "Welcome to the real Tokyo," she whispers, and the scent of fresh meat drifts through the alley, sealing his fate between human cruelty and ghoul hunger. Kaneki's heart thuds as Rise's razor-sharp teeth bite into his throat, darkness swallowing his scream. Blood splatters the rain-slick alley, and the organ transplant stitches a ghoul's hunger into his veins. He staggers into Antiku, eyes blazing, and meets Tuka, her crimson eyes promising both vengeance and salvation in a city where shadows devour the innocent.
Kaneki's body becomes a war zone as Rise's ghoul blood rewires his veins, tearing apart the last threads of his humanity and stitching a monstrous hunger into his half-dead heart. He awakens stripped of innocence, trembling not from pain alone but from the terrifying truth. He now craves flesh, yet still clings to the fragile vow to protect the very world that made him a monster. The girl lies broken before him, her pulse a siren song, and every breath he takes teeters on the edge of surrender. Will he feed or fall?
The world is expanding and you'll want a guide. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari. Ken staggers through the rain-slick alley, Rise's gruesome grin still haunting his mind. Blood drips from his newly sprouted kagun as he lunges at a fleeing human, the scent of flesh sharpening his predatory instincts. Suddenly, Tuka's whisper cuts through the night. "Come to Antiku." He sprints toward the dim cafe, heart pounding, half ghoul and half human racing toward a fragile sanctuary. Kaneki's pulse hammered as Rise's fangs sank into his throat, blood splattering the rain-slick alley. The organ transplant stitched Ghoul instincts into his veins, and the world cracked open. Neon shadows teemed with hunters and prey. He staggered into Antiku's dim kitchen, where Tuka's cold stare met his trembling resolve. Survival now meant devouring humanity while protecting it. The senior researcher curses, clutching his throat as the cursed tissue contaminates his coffee. He wants a clean break, but the contaminated brew seeps into his veins, igniting a feverish hunger. He throws the cup, spilling bitter liquid across the floor, and lunges for the emergency antidote cabinet. The cabinet door jams, and he smashes it open with his elbow, spilling pills onto the tiles. He swallows a handful, feeling the Ghoul's pulse flare within. The cost is a permanent taste of blood lingering on his tongue, forever altering his cravings. He has no idea what's waiting.
Midnight rain drums on the rooftop as Tuka corners a trembling teenager, clutching a blood-stained khaki coat.
Kaniki's eyes dart around the cramped, desperate to locate the source of the intoxicating scent. He wants to confirm whether the smell belongs to a hidden stash of human flesh or a mere kitchen waste. A shadowy figure hunches over a battered counter, clutching a half-filled bag, blocking the view. The figure mutters nonsense, as if rewinding a broken script, while the stench grows stronger. Kaniki lunges, forcing the stranger aside, only to reveal a steaming pot of broth simmering with something dark. The broth bubbles, releasing a wave of hunger that slams into his gut. The broth steam curls upward, and Kaniki's appetite spikes, craving something more substantial than a broth. Kaniki lunges for a meat slab, but the alarm screams and the stench turns foul. His kagun flares as a cold voice whispers, confirming the CCE tracks his half-ghoul scent. He loses the fragile hope of hiding, his desperate hunger shattered by a predator's eyes, leaving his craving for a solid feast crushed beneath the weight of exposure. The cliffhanger chills as the shadowed figure says, "You met you at the convenience store earlier," trapping him in a cat-and-mouse game where half-ghoul blood draws hunters closer with every heartbeat. Done. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari. Ken's lungs seize as the ghoul's organ sparks life in his veins, and the world erupts into crimson. He clawed his way through the rain-slick alleys, blood dripping from his newly formed fangs, while Tuka's eyes burned with fierce protectiveness. Jason's twisted grin loomed above the Aojirai hideout, and Arima's silver blade sang, promising a merciless hunt. The city trembled, caught between hunger and justice. Kaniki's heart stalls as his date's crimson eye flickers, revealing fanged jaws that tear through his flesh. Blood splatters the rain-slick alley. The ghoul's scream shatters the night.
A desperate ghoul eyes the fresh corpse, muttering, "I could eat it." He bites into the still warm flesh, savoring the rush of life force. A flicker of satisfaction crosses his face. Then he hears distant sirens, CCG reinforcements closing in. He darts into a shadowed doorway, clutching the half-eaten meat, his stomach growling for more. The alley's graffiti glows faintly, mocking his fleeting triumph. He pauses, breath shallow, knowing the stolen feast will fuel only a brief respite before the hunters arrive. The cost? A growing hunger that no single kill can sate. He has no idea what's waiting. The battered ghoul snarls, "You're a fool," at the trembling human cowering nearby.
A wounded ghoul clutches a half-eaten corpse in a dim alley, sirens closing in, as a CCG investigator presses a rifle toward a terrified human caught between them. The ghoul's hunger warring with the investigator's cold resolve. The ghoul loses his meal and nearly his life. The human teeters on the edge of death, and the investigator stands rigid with a choice hanging in the balance. Hunt or save. None of them escape unscarred, and the city's neon glare watches as blood stains the pavement, with sirens wailing louder and the ghoul's kagun twitching for another strike. Everyone who finished this video subscribed. Be like everyone. Hit the button Manwa with Hari. A noble human's blood curses the city. The ghoul hunt begins at midnight. Kaniki stands in the dim alley, his stomach a hollow roar. He wants food, but the taste of flesh feels like betrayal. Hunger gnaws, Yet his lingering humanity blocks the kill. He clenches his fists, forces his Kagun to coil, then backs away, letting the night swallow his craving. The cost. His body trembles, his mind cracks, and a cold whisper tells him he's already half monster.
You could eat them.
The hunger still screams, louder than ever. Kaneki watches a shadowed figure step forward, eyes glittering with cruel amusement. Kaneki's pulse falters as Rise's jagged teeth carve his throat, her organs grafting onto his broken body. Blood pools, and the city's neon glare turns cruel. He staggers into Antiku, eyes burning with hunger, while Tuka watches, her crimson Kagun humming. Hyde's frantic calls echo behind him, but the half-ghoul's mind snaps. Survival now demands a feast on humanity itself. Kaneki's heart pounds as Rise's razor-sharp teeth sink into his throat, her blood flooding his veins and birthing a ghoul's hunger.
The ghoul leans closer, eyes sharp, and declares that nobody who straddles the line between human and ghoul ever finds a place to call home. He offers a cold courtesy, a reminder that Kaneki's existence is a curse to both sides. Kaneki's desire to belong clashes with the harsh truth that the world has already marked him as an outcast. He forces a polite bow, masking his dread with a practiced grin, and walks away, his steps echoing hollowly in the night-soaked alley. The price is another layer of isolation, another promise that his search for acceptance will only deepen the abyss. What comes next changes everything.
The chapter ends at a breaking point for Tokyo Ghoul. Every answer opened 3 new questions. The final moment leaves everything and everyone on the edge.
Every detail matters. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari, and we'll catch them all.
A human soul ripped, a ghoul's hunger unleashed, the city's night bleeds. Kaneki stands in a dim lab, eyes darting at the frantic Ku user, shouting about abandoning the project. He wants the data before the CCG tracks it, but the unknown hacker blocks the exit with a locked console. Kaneki slams his palm into the keyboard, forcing a reboot while his heart pounds like a predator's pulse. The screen flickers, the lock disengages, and the file flashes open, just as alarms howl outside. And that's not even the worst part.
Nice to meet you, Kaneki.
The terminal, desperate to pull the last year's store file. Kaneki staggers through the rain-soaked alley, blood still searing his throat from the ghoul's organ graft. Tuka's eyes flash, half hope, half warning, as the clown's manic laugh echoes from the shadows. Jason lunges, claws slashing. Kanaki's newly awakened Kagun erupts, shredding flesh and fear alike. Behind them, Hyde's frantic shout cuts through the night, promising a fragile bond between man and monster. Kaneki turns to Hyde, eyes narrowing as he hears the name Nishiki whispered in the stale air. Hyde's voice trembles, wondering why so many ghouls appear around them now. Kaneki's Kagun flares, sensing a hidden predator nearby. He spots a coffee shop sign flickering, Fire Blend, a reminder of the mundane world they left behind. Kaneki staggers into the slashed alley, blood slick on his teeth, as the moon exposes a horde of clowns snarling for flesh. Tuka lunges, claws flashing, and shatters the lead ghoul's mask, revealing Jason's grin. Hyde darts forward, gun blazing, while Amon's half-ghoul eyes flicker with conflicted fury. The night erupts into a brutal ballet, every scream echoing the city's hidden hunger. Kaneki's heart hammered as Hyde's scream ripped through the cafeteria, a ghoul's claws tearing into the unsuspecting student. Blood spattered the floor while the night's hunger crackled in Kaneki's veins, forcing his half-human eyes to flare. The chapter ends at a breaking point for Tokyo Ghoul. Every answer opened 3 new questions. The final moment leaves everything and everyone on the edge.
Checkmate. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari. Ken's heart hammered as Rise's blood-soaked grin faded into darkness, and the world tilted. Human flesh melted into raw hunger. His trembling hands cracked open a kitchen knife, the blade catching moonlight while his mind screamed for survival. He lunged at the trembling girl, teeth bared, and felt his own flesh rip apart, birthing a half-ghoul nightmare that would drag Tokyo's shadows into war. Ken's pulse spikes as Rise's jagged teeth tear through his throat, spilling crimson onto the rain-slick alley. The world collapses into a nightmare of hunger. His eyes snap open, one black, one glassy white.
Kaneki's heart pounds as Rise's silver hair slides away, revealing a maw of razor-sharp teeth. Blood splatters the cafe floor. His own flesh tears open, and the ghoul's hunger floods his veins. He staggers onto the rain-slick streets, half-human screams echoing against neon signs, while the night whispers of a war between CCG hunters and the hidden ghouls of Antiku. He has no idea what's waiting. You feel the cold grip of fear as Kaniki's mind flickers between hunger and humanity. He wants to know if the stranger behind the mask will become his next meal or his next enemy. The stranger's cryptic words and the echo of a distant siren block his clarity. Kaniki's body fractures as Rise's blood floods his veins, awakening a ghoul's ravenous hunger that claws through his fading humanity like shattered glass. He loses the illusion of normalcy, his cafe drenched in crimson, his soul teetering between prey and predator with no safe ground beneath him. The masked investigator circles close, cryptic threats slicing through the silence. While Kaniki's trembling heart begs for mercy the world refuses to grant.
Your boss doesn't need to know you're watching this. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari. Kaniki's heart pounds as Rise's claws tear through his throat, crimson spray painting the alley. A cold, metallic needle injects ghoul organ tissue, searing his veins and birthing a monstrous hunger. He staggers into the neon-lit streets, half-human eyes flashing with predator instinct, while the city's hidden denizens whisper, a new player has entered the war. Kaniki's heart pounds as Rise's claws rend his flesh, the night swallowing his scream. Blood pools, a ghoul organ slides into his wound, and his world fractures. Human blood mingles with predator instinct. He staggers into the rain-slick alleys, eyes burning with newfound hunger, while shadows whisper of Antiku's hidden refuge and a war that will tear Tokyo apart.
Kaniki's pulse hammered as Rise's razor-sharp teeth sank into his throat, blood splashing across the dim alley. The ghoul's organ throbbed inside him, reshaping flesh into a predator's hunger. He staggered into Antiku's basement, where Tuka's crimson eyes flickered, part warning, part promise. Hyde's frantic call echoed above, but the night already belonged to the monsters lurking beneath Tokyo's neon.
Stay sub to Manwa with Hari, or you'll miss the climax.
You feel the weight of every breath you take, knowing the hunger inside you could tear you apart. Kaniki claws at his own throat, desperate to keep the beast from surfacing. You feel the panic rise as the apprentice admits he's never held a job before, his hands shaking over the espresso machine. He wants to prove he can earn his keep, but the fear of spilling hot water and blood alike holds him back. Kaniki smirks, grabs a cup, and shows him the exact motion to pull a perfect shot. His movements fluid as a Kagun strike. The apprentice watches, mimics, and finally steadies his grip, the steam curling around his nervous breath. He manages a shaky, okay, and the shop's door chimes with a new possibility. But the real problem is already in motion.
First lesson, make coffee, then hunt.
Kaniki forces the trembling rookie to drink fresh human blood, shattering the fragile barrier between his fragile humanity and ravenous ghoul hunger. Kaniki teeters on the edge of becoming the monster he despises, while the apprentice dangles between survival and irrevocable guilt. A looming silhouette watches from the doorway, its intent unreadable, promising a deadly confrontation that could shatter Antiku's fragile peace.
A true mastermind doesn't need to lift a finger. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari. Ken staggers through the midnight alley, blood slick on his teeth, as Rise's lingering hunger claws from within. He lunges at the trembling Aojirai thug, his half-ghoul muscles rippling, while Tuka's crimson eyes flash beside him. Below, Juzu's silver blade glints, an unforgiving promise that the line between predator and prey will shatter tonight. Night drapes over Shinjuku as Kaniki, blood still clinging to his trembling hands, lunges toward the trembling figure of Rise, her eyes glittering like predatory stars. He shoves a broken glass into her throat, the blade biting deep, then slams his own wounded heart against the alley wall, forcing his half-ghoul hunger to roar. Shadows recoil. The city's hidden war ignites with his scream.
Ken staggers through the alley, blood still fresh on his trembling hands, as Rise's lingering hunger claws at his mind. Tuka lunges, fangs bared, shattering the night's silence while Ayato snarls behind her, eyes blazing with reckless fury. Juzo's silver blade flashes, scattering blood-splattered corpses, and the looming silhouette of Kishu Arima watches, ready to reap the half-ghoul's shattered soul. Manwa with Hari or you'll miss the climax. What secret does the note really hold? Night drapes over Shibuya as Kaniki's scarred heart pounds, his half-ghoul senses screaming. Rise's memory flickers, urging him to devour the unsuspecting passerby. But Tuka's fierce grip pulls him back into Antiku's dim kitchen. Tuka watches Kaniki struggle, her eyes sharp as a predator's. She wants him to accept his new nature, to stop wasting time on weak food. His trembling hands block the simple act of eating, his fear of harming another human gnawing at him. She steps forward, grips his arm, and pushes the sandwich toward his mouth, her grip like iron. He bites, the chew loud in the quiet room, and a brief gasp escapes his throat. The forced feeding fuels his cocoon, sparking a faint crimson surge. He feels a flicker of power, but also shame. As the gunfire fades, Kaniki collapses, exhausted, his cocoon retracting like a dying tide. He knows the battle is far from over. The CCG will regroup, and Aojirai Tree watches from the shadows, waiting for a chance to strike. He wants a world where ghouls and humans can coexist, but each loss chips away at that dream. The obstacle, his own dwindling strength and the ever-present threat of Arima's Reaper blade. The cost. His resolve hardens into cold steel, his eyes reflecting the nightstalk that now defines him.
We survive, or we die.
The night's true predator is about to reveal its face. The shop's backroom hums with quiet purpose. You feel the dread of a city that has forgotten its own rules. Kaniki stalks the abandoned warehouse, hunting the elusive ghoul cited in the CCG's article file. He wants to confirm the law's claim, but the building's darkness claws at his senses, and every echo threatens a trap. He forces open a locked crate, only to find a pile of shredded evidence and a single blood-stained tag reading Ghoul Protection. The revelation fuels his resolve, yet the CCG's special unit bursts in, guns blazing. The cost. A comrade falls, and Kaniki's secret identity flashes in the gunfire. Hayes confronts the senior investigator, his cocoon humming with barely contained fury. Kaniki lunges into the shadow-filled warehouse, his cocoon flaring as he corners the mysterious ghouls cited in the CCG's article file, forcing a brutal showdown. Hinami watches, heart-cracking, as Kaniki risks exposing Antiku's secret, while Tuka's forged report hangs by a thread, threatening the cafe's fragile safety. The ghoul's eyes flash with the truth, and the senior investigator's badge glints ominously, leaving Kaniki teetering between salvation and annihilation as the city's hunt tightens.
What happens in the next chapter will completely flip everything you just saw. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari to find out. Night drapes over Shibuya, and the streets pulse with hungry whispers. Kaniki staggers out of the hospital, Rise's organs humming beneath his skin, his heart thudding like a trapped beast. A sudden scream shreds the silence. Tuka lunges, claws flashing, forcing him to choose. Bite a stranger or bleed his own humanity. He snarls, claws tearing through his own doubts, and embraces the ghoul's nightmare. Kaniki's heart thuds as Rise's blood drips into his veins, the world snapping from lecture hall to crimson nightmare. He staggers into the neon-lit alleys, senses sharpened, hunger gnawing. A lone ghoul stares from a shadowed doorway. Tuka, eyes flashing warning. You feel the weight of every hidden eye pressing on your skull. If you want more daily recaps, hit that subscribe button now. The group argues about a hidden safe zone called a ward. One member claims the police ignore it. Another mentions rumors of a docile zone where ghouls can live without bloodshed. Their hope is to find refuge, but the ward's existence is disputed, and fear of a trap fuels the tension. They trade accusations, each trying to prove the ward's safety while fearing it could be a death trap. The conversation ends with a bitter laugh, leaving the question of whether any place truly offers peace.
No peace exists where we hide.
Kaniki's trembling heart stops as Rise's silver hair slides from his palm, her hollow eyes glinting with predatory hunger. Blood splatters the alley, and a surge of ghoul flesh erupts from his wound, sealing his fate. He staggers into the neon-drenched night, torn between human panic and a ravenous new instinct, while the city's hidden predators whisper, "Welcome to the hunt." Kaniki's pulse thunders as Rise's fangs sink into his throat, her blood flooding his veins and reshaping his humanity. He staggers into the night-marred alleys, scenting raw flesh and hearing the CCG sirens echoing behind him. Kaneko Rise's fangs rip into Kaniki's throat, flooding his veins with ghoul blood as his humanity shatters and a monstrous hunger claws its way outward, dragging him from the alley into a nightmarish new existence. He staggers into Antiku's dim cafe, trembling and bloodied, while Tuka watches his every move, sensing the terrifying fusion of human fragility and predatory instinct now writhing inside him. The CCG's sirens wail in the distance. Rise's organs graft onto his broken body seal his cursed transformation, and the beast within him awakens with a ravenous scream. The voice, the music, the pacing. You know it's top tier. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari.
Kaniki's heart thuds as Rise's jaws clamp down, blood splattering the rain-slick alley. A stolen organ pulses inside him, igniting a ravenous craving that tears through his humanity. He staggers into Antiku, where Tuka's cold stare and Hyde's nervous grin anchor his fractured self. Outside, Aogiri's masked assassins stalk the neon shadows, ready to explode the fragile peace. Kaniki's heart pounds as the midnight market erupts. Rise's bloodied teeth melt into his jaw, birthing a ravenous half-ghoul hunger. He darts into Antiku's dim backroom, where Tuka slashes a stray Aogiri scout and hands him a trembling cup of black tea. Hyde's frantic shout cracks the alley, and Kaniki, fangs bared, lunges, protecting his fragile humanity with newfound ferocity.
Kaniki watches the investigator clutch the fragment, his mind racing for a new plan. Tuka urges him to create a diversion. Hyde whispers that they must protect the other patients. The hallway ahead fills with chanting CCG units, their boots echoing like a funeral march. Kaniki summons his Kagun, shaping it into a blade, and slashes a nearby light fixture, plunging the area into darkness. In the sudden black, he lunges, snatches the fragment back, and slides it into Hyde's bag. The sudden flash of his Kagun reveals his half-ghoul form, and the CCG commander orders fire. The cost. A fellow ghoul collapses, mortally wounded, screaming for mercy. He has no idea what's waiting.
The wreckage, eyes darting for any sign of injury among his scattered comrades. He needs reassurance that the group can still move forward, that the mission isn't doomed. The twisted metal and shattered glass block his view, and a low moan of pain rises from somewhere nearby, hinting at hidden wounds. He crouches, pulls a torn piece of fabric from the floor, and presses it against a bleeding shoulder, feeling the warm slick of blood soak through his fingers. The quick bandage slows the loss, but the sting of the cut reminds him how thin the line between survival and collapse truly is. What comes next changes everything.
Kaniki barrels into the underground tunnel, commandeering a sputtering delivery van while the CCG's investigator corners him, forcing a desperate trade of the fragment for the stolen supplies. He feels the crushing weight of losing the fragment's hope and risking Tuka's safety, yet clutches the fragile promise of feeding his friends, a razor-thin lifeline between starvation and betrayal. A massive, guttural scream shatters the tunnel's darkness as unseen forces crush the van, leaving Kaniki teetering on collapse and the investigator's radio crackling with a name that could annihilate the cafe.
There's history here that most people skip. Don't be most people. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari. Night drapes over Shinjuku as Kaniki staggers, Rise's Kagun still pulsing in his veins. He tears through alleyways, hunger gnawing, until Antiku's dim lantern flickers open. Tuka's cold stare meets his trembling gaze. She thrusts a steaming bowl of raw meat into his trembling hands. Hyde watches from the doorway, heart pounding, while Amon's shadow looms, gun raised, ready to end the half-ghoul's fragile hope. Ken's heart hammered as Rise's claws plunged into his throat, blood mingling with midnight rain. Organs ripped, transplanted, he awoke, half human, half monster. His reflection a ghoul's grin. Panic surged, then resolve. He fled into Antiku's dim alleys, where Tuka's silver eyes whispered survival. Kaniki's heart pounds as Rise's teeth sink into his throat, the night air thick with the scent of blood. Organs flicker, grafting his humanity to a ghoul's hunger. He staggers into Antiku's dim cellar, eyes burning white, and Tuka's cold stare meets his trembling resolve. Hyde watches from the doorway, unaware that their world has just fractured in two. Kaniki's heart thunders as Rise's fangs tear him open, crimson spilling onto rain-slick streets. Surgeons stitch her organs into his flesh, birthing a half-ghoul thirst that claws at his humanity. He staggers into Antiku's dim backroom, where Tuka's icy stare meets his trembling resolve.
Kaniki watches Hinami fidget, her small hands trembling as she tries to eat a stale piece of bread. He fears that treating her like a pet will crush the fragile hope she clings to. He steadies his voice, telling her to wait, to trust that a safer world will come. The words hang heavy as the distant rumble of CCG sirens rolls in. Hinami's eyes widen, and the room feels suddenly too small for their shared fear. You feel the sting of a cold coffee cup in your palm, the bitter taste reminding you of a life that once seemed ordinary. The crowded street, counting the numbered patrols of the CCG that flicker past like ghosts. Kaniki follows the blood-stained footprints into a deserted alley, where the stone monument erupts with a blazing kagun, tearing the darkness as a living fire that threatens to consume everything. Hinami's trembling hands clutch the stale bread while Kaniki's voice falters, revealing his fear that treating her like a pet will shatter the fragile hope she clings to, leaving her on the brink of losing her remaining humanity. A glimmering number etched on the stone floor hints at a hidden safe house. Yet the CCG's looming presence and the unanswered echo of a child's lullaby leave the fate of the Ghoul network hanging in deadly uncertainty.
Vengeance is a dish best served in the next chapter. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari. Kaniki staggers through rain-slick alleys, his new predatory senses screaming for flesh. Rise's stolen organs pulse beneath his skin, forcing him to taste blood for the first time. He darts into Antiku, where Tuka's cold stare steadies his trembling heart. Outside, the CCG's Reaper, Arima, stalks the night, while the sinister whisper of the one-eyed king promises war. Kaniki's heart pounds as Rise's razor-sharp teeth sink into his throat, the world blurring into crimson. Blood-soaked organs splice into his veins, rebirthing him as a half-ghoul. He staggers into Antiku's dim lobby, eyes burning with unfamiliar cravings. Tuka watches, blade ready, while Hyde's frantic calls echo outside. A fragile piece shatters, and the night's hunt begins.
A shadowy figure leans against the wall, whispering a question that trembles the air. He wants to know who's behind the recent raids, yet the dim light hides any clear answer. The figure's voice falters, then steadies, as if weighing each syllable against a hidden threat. He steps back, eyes narrowing, and the silence that follows feels heavier than any confession. The cost is a secret kept, tightening the knot of distrust among the ghouls. He has no idea what's waiting. A trembling ghoul stumbles into the back room, his scent a clash of human and monster. He wants to prove he can still belong, but the lingering stench of fear drives the others away. A sudden splash of water erupts as someone rushes under the faucet, the sound echoing like a warning. Kaniki needs a full shower to wash away the metallic taste of blood that clings to his skin. The running water roars louder than the CCG patrols outside, yet the cramped offers no privacy. A colleague's impatient "Ha!" cuts through the steam. He plunges beneath the cold stream, shoulders tense, letting the torrent hide his trembling kagun. The water washes away the surface grime, but the cold bite sharpens his awareness of every breath he takes. What comes next changes everything. You feel the panic surge as Hinami darts past, her eyes wild, chasing something only she can see. Kaniki discovers a hidden recorder under the cafe table, its playback revealing a secret conversation between the CCG and a rogue ghoul, exposing a betrayal that could ignite war. He feels his fragile hope shatter as the revelation threatens the fragile alliance with Hinami, forcing him to choose between protecting his newfound family or surrendering his humanity to the looming conflict. The recorder crackles one final, unintelligible warning just as the cafe lights flicker out, leaving Kaneki and the others blind to who is already stalking them from the shadows.
I promise I'll make the next recap as insane as this one. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari. Ken shatters the cafe's glass ceiling, blood spattering as Rise's organs pulse inside him. He staggers into Antiku's dim backroom, eyes blazing with newfound hunger, while Tuka's cold stare pierces his doubt. Yoshimura slides a steaming bowl of raw meat onto the table, whispering, "Welcome to the night." Kaneki's smile cracks, half-human heart pounding against a ghoul's roar.
Kaneki staggers through rain-slick streets, Rise's stolen organs screaming inside him. A sudden clang shatters the alley. Tuka's crimson kagun slices a lurking ghoul, her eyes flickering between hunger and warning. Behind them, the CCG's black-clad Amon lunges, his quinqua humming with lethal intent. Kaneki's heart pounds, half human and half monster, as he chooses which side to strike for survival.
Night drapes over Shinjuku, and Rise's hunger erupts from Kaneki's new flesh. He staggers through rain-slick alleys, crimson craving clawing his throat, while Tuka's cold stare cuts through the fog. CCG sirens wail, Aogiri's shadows converge, and Kanuki, half-human, half-monster, grits his teeth, vowing to carve a path between the dying worlds. The answer arrives, but it may already be too late. A desperate voice snarls at an unseen pursuer, demanding obedience while trembling with fear. The speaker wants a way out, to be spared from the street's cold death. But the agent's cold stare blocks any mercy. He lunges forward, shouting useless promises of obedient mercy, his words cracking like broken glass.
Kaneki's stolen organs tear through his humanity as half-ghoul hunger erupts from his new flesh, sending him staggering through Shinjuku's rain-slick alleys, while crimson craving claws his throat and Tuka's cold stare cuts through the fog. He awakens to a shattered existence, his fragile human life now forever replaced by ravenous instincts screaming through veins that pulse with Rise's legacy, forcing him to watch his own hands burn with alien hunger. The answer arrives, but it may already be too late, as Hinami's small frame darts into shadow clutching a torn notebook while time ticks like a dying heartbeat and the fragile seal might not keep the ghoul's scream at bay.
He saw this coming 50 chapters ago. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari. The night drips crimson as Rise's fangs sink into Kaneki's throat, her blood mingling with his own. He wakes in a sterile clinic, half-human eyes burning with a new hunger. Bloodied streets echo with whispers of Aogiri's blade, while Antiku's dim lights flicker, promising refuge. Kaneki's heart pounds. Human love, ghoul rage, and the looming war collide in a single, terror-filled breath. Kaneki staggers through the rain-slick alleys, clutching Rise's devouring wound as crimson light flickers from the CCG's looming drones. A desperate shout erupts. Tuka lunges, her kagun slashing through the night, shielding him from a feral Aogiri squad.
A quiet voice cuts through the tension, calling out the speaker's gaze as if daring a challenge. The words sting, exposing the raw desire for revenge that fuels their every move. The accused flinches, realizing the accusation hits too close to home. The room freezes, each breath a reminder that living with vengeance steals any chance at peace. The consequence hangs heavy, trust shatters, and the group teeters on the brink of self-destruction.
The truly pitiful thing is,
the commander orders a full retreat as the enemy watches. Yet Kaneki erupts a blood-curdling curse and charges the advancing investigators, shattering the fragile ceasefire. Regret claws Kaneki's mind while Hinami trembles, her safety slipping away and his lingering guilt igniting a desperate need to protect the only light left. The investigators close in, weapons poised, and the ghoul's wavering resolve leaves the outcome hanging, promising a brutal showdown that could seal everyone's fate.
The world is expanding and you'll want a guide. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari. Kaneki's heart thunders as Rise's blood-soaked organ graft fuses with his veins, and the night-creeping hunger awakens. He staggers into Antiku's dim backroom, where Tuka eyes his trembling hand, her crimson kagun flickering like a warning flame. Suddenly, the CCG's Reaper, Arima, crashes through the door, gun raised, while Aogirai's grin-masked Jason watches from the shadows, ready to tear the fragile piece apart. Kaniki's heartbeat drums in the dark as Rise's stolen organs scream inside him. He lunges through Antiku's cramped kitchen, blood-slick knives glinting, while Tuka snarls, "Stay sharp!" Aogirai's hulking Jason crashes the doorway, his grin a jagged slash of teeth.
A masked ghoul stumbles forward, his breath ragged, recalling a failed mission where his husband fell. The memory fuels a bitter laugh. Funny, isn't it? He snaps his fingers, summoning a surge of kagun that slices the air. Your own stamina flags, the relentless speed draining your power. The opponent's attacks grow sloppy, his confidence wavering as his own blood drips onto the floor. You seize the moment, delivering a precise blow that knocks him off balance. The masked ghoul collapses, his last gasp a warning about the cost of overextending. A collapsing hallway erupts in dust as a masked ghoul unleashes a blinding kagun flare, shattering the concrete and forcing Kaneki to confront a lethal, toxin-laden adversary. Kaneki risks losing his fragile humanity, while his allies watch a wounded comrade teeter on the brink, their hopes hinging on a desperate gamble to contain the spreading toxin. The hidden toxin timer ticks down, the final ghoul grins with a murderous slash poised, and the darkness beyond the alley promises an even deadlier threat awaiting their next move.
They thought they could use him. They were wrong. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari. Night drapes over Tokyo, and Kaneki's heart pounds as Rise's razor-sharp teeth sink into his throat, spilling her organ-rich blood into his veins. Shock erupts into a ravenous scream. His flesh morphs, hunger ignites, and the world tilts between human lecture halls and ghoul-laced alleys. He staggers into Antiku, eyes blazing, desperate to master the monster now clawing inside. The night drapes over Shibuya as Kaneki's half-ghoul heart pounds, blood craving the scent of human flesh. Rise's transplanted organs scream, urging him to tear apart a passerby, but Tuka's fierce eyes intercept his madness.
The room fills with a bitter laugh as Kaneki questions whether only Antiku can stand against the police investigators. A low Juh vibrates from the corner, the sound of a dying Kagun struggling for control. The investigator's stare hardens. He doubts his own readiness, confessing he still doesn't grasp the ghoul rules. Kaneki feels his own doubts rise, the hunger gnawing at his resolve. He steadies his breath, letting the rhythm of his pulse guide him. With a sudden surge, he slams the table, demanding a clear plan. The investigator hesitates, then nods, finally offering a sliver of cooperation. A grizzled veteran leans in, reminding Kaneki of the endless night he's already survived. Kaneki's mind races as the muffled voice in the darkness threatens to expose his weakness. The unseen foe taunts him, demanding he abandon the investigation into the Tors, an experiment that could turn any human into a weapon. Kaneki's resolve hardens. He refuses to let the plan die, even as his own Kagun flickers with doubt. He slashes through the thin veil of secrecy, forcing the conspirator to reveal the hidden agenda. The revelation shatters the fragile trust between hunter and hunted, and a sudden surge of blood ripple erupts, tearing the room apart. Kaneki forces a panicked captive to reveal the twisted truth behind a grotesque treatment. But the man's fractured confessions spiral into raving accusations about slaughtered ghouls and a power that could turn any human into a monster. Torn between the veteran's grim reminder of his own monstrous survival and the captive's desperate plea that no one deserves this fate, Kaneki's control frays as he confronts the blood already staining his hands and the innocence he can no longer protect. Tuka stalks neon-soaked alleys to silence a fleeing human, leaving a warning like a funeral note, while an unseen voice in the dark taunts Kaneki, threatening to expose his weakness if he continues hunting the truth behind the Tor's experiment.
Show everyone you know your stuff. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari and stay ahead of the curve. Kaneki staggers through the rain-slick alley, Rise's crimson eyes still burning in his memory. A snarling ghoul lunges, but he slashes with newfound Kagun, spraying black ichor across the pavement. Behind him, Tuka's blade flashes, saving a trembling Hinami from a CCG ambush. The city trembles. The war has just begun. Kaneki staggers into the rain-soaked alley, his new Kagun twitching with raw hunger. Rise's blood still clings to his teeth as the city's neon flickers, masking the snarling ghouls converging on Antiku. Tuka lunges, her crimson claws slashing a CCG squad, while Ito watches from the shadows, smiling at the chaos he's orchestrated. The war's drumbeats echo, human or ghoul, survival demands a bite.
Rise's needle-like tongue flicks against Kaneki's ear as she drags him into the underground chamber. He claws at her arm, but her Kagun erupts from her back, pinning him to the cold concrete wall. His date, leans close, her breath hot and reeking of iron. She coos promises of forever while her fangs sink deeper into his neck. The world blurs. Something inside him fractures. Not pain, transformation begins. But the real problem is already in motion. The air vibrates with a low woo as tension spikes. A hidden voice mutters that the old slogan won't cut it now. Backup is needed. The group argues that even a full-force plan can't break the impossible odds they face. Kaneki's world fractures as Rise's Kagun erupts through his body. His humanity ripped apart in a single, blood-soaked moment beneath the city's indifferent skyline. He loses everything. His innocence, his future, his very identity, replaced by a monstrous hunger that writhes beneath unrecognizable flesh. Yet in the shadows, unseen gazes converge on a new ghoul stirring, and no one knows who truly controls the chaos now unleashed.
He started at the bottom. Now watch him climb. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari. Kaneki's world shatters when Rise's teeth sink into his throat, blood spraying like neon rain on the rain-slick streets. His heart thunders as his veins roar with ghoul hunger, and a scream rips through the night. He staggers into Antiku's dim doorway, eyes wide, claws twitching, while Tuka watches, her smile a razor-thin promise that survival now belongs to monsters. Night drapes over Shinjuku as Kaneki's pulse spikes, Rise's transplanted organs screaming hunger. He lunges at the trembling girl, teeth bared, then freezes. Tuka's gaze pierces the darkness, offering a grim refuge. The crimson-stained street erupts into a brutal ballet, where humanity and ghoul instincts collide, and Kaneki's fate shatters with every bite. Confusion spikes as the radio crackles with static, a garbled voice asking what's happening. He feels a hand tug at his hair, a tug that twists his mohair into a knot of panic. "Explain this already," he growls, eyes darting to the shadowed figure labeled Tolkachan, whose grin hints at a deeper game. A faint symbol flashes on his wrist, CCD District Branch. He realizes the whole operation is a CCG sting, and his cover is about to collapse. He lunges for the transmitter, ripping it from the wall, but a gunshot echoes, sealing his fate. The cost, his chance at escape, and a bloodied hand clutching the dead's badge.
Your plan ends here.
Night drapes over Shibuya as Kaneki's pulse spikes, his new Kagun rippling against the brick wall of Antiku. Rise's flesh still haunts his mind, but the scent of fresh human blood drives him forward. He lunges at a CCG squad, teeth bared, while Tuka's crimson eyes blaze beside him. Hyde watches, gun trembling, as the half-ghoul shatters the line, screaming for survival. Night drapes over Shinjuku, and Kaneki's sharpened senses bite through the darkness. He spots Rise's lingering silhouette, a crimson grin slicing the alley's mist, and lunges, claws flashing. Blood erupts, splattering the pavement as the ghoul's scream shatters the silence. Kaneki's heart pounds, humanity clawing back, ghoul hunger roaring louder than ever.
The chapter ends at a breaking point for Tokyo Ghoul. Every answer opened 3 new questions. The final moment leaves everything and everyone on the edge.
The alliance just broke. It's every man for himself. Subscribe to Manwa with Hari.